The views and opinions expressed by the guests of Sasquatch Experience do not necessarily reflect the opinion of the hosts, sponsors, or affiliates of the Sasquatch Experience. As always, listener discretion is advised.
911, what are you reporting?
We got someone or something crawling around out here.
Does a legend walk among us, lurking in the forests of our world?
Did you see what it was? Was it a person or an animal or?
I can't tell. All I know is that my sensor light came on and I just happened to glimpse and see this thing running across the yard. A good-sized man or something. It looks like a man. I don't know what it was.
For over 15 years, we've talked with scientists, researchers, investigators, and witnesses, trying to gain insight and proof around the existence of this mysterious entity.
Jesus Christ, you better...
Sure.
Zia!
Hello?
Get somebody out here.
What's going on now, sir?
That son of a bitch is about 6'9", I don't know.
Do you see him now, sir?
Yes, I'm looking right at him.
Uh-oh. Okay, hang on.
He's right...
Is he in your yard, sir?
Yeah, God, he's big.
Okay, what's he doing in your yard?
He's looking at me.
Join us as we continue into the investigation of the Sasquatch Experience.
And good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is the Sasquatch Experience for Thursday, January 14th, 2010. We are in a new year, and we are back. We are back, baby. The Sasquatch Experience has returned. We are back. And we want to thank everyone for listening to the show and supporting the show every week. Sean is off tonight, so it'll be just me flying solo. But we've got a great guest for you guys tonight, and we're going to be covering the state of New York, the Empire State. We're going to be covering the sightings in that state. But first, we want to get to a little bit of news. Quite a bit has happened since our last show. We've had several video footages, including most famously the IMAX footage from the documentary Great North. That turned out to be a crew member wearing a ninja outfit and basically making an idiot of himself and dang near getting himself killed. trying to scare a group of caribou, trying to scare a herd of caribou just to get a better shot, I guess. But yeah, that did turn out to be a crew member, as pointed out by the BFRO and pointed out on the Blu-ray edition of the DVD for the documentary Great North. So that turned out to be, well, it wasn't a hoax, it was just some goofball fooling around is all that was. It was not a hoax, it was not a deliberate hoax. So, but still, better luck next time, right? Let's see, and Bill Munns, who has done excellent work on the Patterson-Gimlin film, he was chosen as the 2009 Bigfooter of the Year by Daniel Perez in the Bigfoot Times newsletter, so we want to send out a big congratulations to Bill Munns for achieving that, and well-deserved, by the way. The man has done amazing work on the PG film. I was able to meet him last May at the Yakima event and also hear his presentation, and just a ball game changer as far as I'm concerned on the Patterson-Gimlin film. There's just not a whole lot else going on. Well, we had that excitement with the with what appeared to be a photograph of something on a trail cam in Minnesota. That turned out to be just a guy in a rain suit. So it seems like there's been a lot of false alarms that have come up. But, you know, hope springs eternal, and we're not going to give up. We're just going to keep on going. stuff happens in this field, and that's just the nature of the field, of the Bigfoot field. We get all these hoaxes, we get all these hoaxes and misidentifications and things of that nature. Plus, you had the porcupine in the tree, which some thought might have been a Sasquatch, which I believe was a porcupine. As a matter of fact, I mean, if you take a close look at it, it is a porcupine. So, but anyway, I guess that's pretty much all I wanted to go over. As far as news items, we do have a great guest for you guys tonight. We have a longtime Sasquatch researcher from the state of New York, Mr. Bill Brann, and he is well known. He's been well known for investigating sightings, especially in upstate New York, and he co-wrote an excellent book in 1992 titled Monsters of the North Woods, which I still have my copy of. It's an excellent book. He signed it for me, by the way, and I still have the book. It's one of the better books. If anybody needs a primer on what's going on in the northeastern United States, that's a good book to start with, right there. I would put it next to Rick Berry's Bigfoot on the East Coast, which is extremely rare and hard to find. It's hard to get a hold of, and it's really a really great book. And Bill Brann, welcome to the Sasquatch Experience.
Well, thanks, Henry, and thanks for having me on.
No problem. Oh my gosh, we've got 2 callers already. I'm not sure if they're just listening or let me bring them on, Rico. We have 304. I believe I know who that is. Hey, Nancy.
Hi, Henry. How's my favorite boyfriend?
I'm doing good. You just listening, hon?
Yes, I am. I had to listen to your voice just to make my week.
Okay. I'll put you back on mute.
Thank you.
If the switchboard will cooperate with me here. Okay, there we go. And 651, I know who that is. 651, that's Abe.
That is Abe. I just called him as well, buddy.
All right. And if you have any questions, if either you or Nancy have any questions, there's a little feature you can you and you know I still have not been able to host. Right. There's a feature you can click on, I think, where you raise your hand. But, you know, I have not been able to figure that darn thing out yet. Oh, well. Anyway, I'll put you back on mute, Abe. Thanks for calling in to listen. Oh, Nancy must be testing it out or something. Let's see if I can bring her up on the switchboard. The switchboard is acting up. Oh, there we go. There we go. Did you have a question, Nancy?
No, I just wanted to tell you anytime that you needed to cue the host, all you do is press the number 1.
Oh, okay. No problem.
And then your little flag will come up that somebody's on there.
That's how you do it. See,
I'm telling you, it takes a woman.
Exactly.
That little British girl on Blog Talk tells you what to do. She gives you instructions.
Anyway, I'm going to put you back on mute, Nancy.
Okay, thanks.
Uh-huh. All right, let's get down to business. Okay, Bill, you've been investigating, how long have you been investigating the Sasquatch mystery in the state of New York?
I started my 34th year.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, 34 years this coming in August. So, yeah, it's getting right up there now. Of course, that means I'm getting older, too.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, you know, we were talking earlier about, you know, some of the sightings that took place during the winter months, and we were just starting to discuss, this one here happened in January 2007. What it was a delivery driver there based in New York State, upstate New York, and he had to make a delivery over to Vermont, which is not a great distance, maybe perhaps 50 miles. And as he's passing through Whitehall, he remembers what other drivers have said. Whitehall has been known as Hootersville for Sasquatch. And he's kind of chuckled himself on that, and as he made his delivery and he's starting back in the wee hours of the morning, he noticed something between Whitehall and Fort Ann. It looked like a Christmas tree off to one side of the road, and since this is in January, it wouldn't be out of the question that's what it was. But as he was approaching it, he flipped up his headlights on his truck, and he noticed the thing moved. and he started slowing down as he went by. This thing was either in a crouch position or a squatch position, and it is running his hands, if you will, across the patum there, the cadium, and he put them to his mouth. And it never flinched, never made any effort to stand up or move or anything like that. And as he went by, he says, maybe I ought to turn around and go back. But he looked at the time, and it was after 1 o'clock in the morning, and he's the only vehicle on the road. So he kind of changed his mind. But the thing was, he was pointing out there, this thing might have been licking salt off the road by using his fingertips and just running them off across the catamaran and putting it to his mouth. And most of the reports you get is where the thing crossed the road or was standing next to the roadside or was doing something like that. This report tells us it actually was doing something. And so many of these reports come in that it is not scared of vehicles going by. It actually watches vehicles go by. So that is one of the winter reports that I thought was intriguing, and I'm still working on this to get more details from it. Actually, the witness is very, very close-mouthed about it. He did not want to talk at all, but later he did, and didn't give me all the information I wanted, but enough to, kind of start the things rolling here. And we, as you were talking, we did some of the shows there for Monster Quest, and one of the ones that was shot in Whitehall was based on Dan Gordon's sighting.
Right.
Dan is a former police officer, one of the nicest guys, straightest shooters you want to meet. He and his partner there in February of 1982, had the sighting, and he says, I question it to this day, what did I see? He says, I know what I saw, and he says, there's no getting around that. And just a year before that, in 1981, in January 1981, two young people were parked down near the Pulteney River that borders Whitehall, and they had a sighting which they were describing as a man crossing a field, actually stepping over a barbed wire fence. There's kind of a marsh area. It's heavy snow, and this thing was standing between 7 and 8 foot tall, walked across the field, and the young man got out of the vehicle, and he's watching it, and of course the dome lights on the vehicle that he was in. And all of a sudden this thing changed direction and started coming after him and started closing on him real fast. The girl was screaming, he gets back in the vehicle, and they drove off, and as they were driving off, he looked over his shoulder, and he says this thing was head and shoulders to the tilings of the bridge that they were going over. And again, that I see that as kind of aggressive behavior, but it's also a winter report that took place not far from the village of Whitehall. I don't think you're 10 minutes outside of the village in that case. So up to the Whitehall area for a number of years has been many winter sightings, some more interesting than others, if you will, for lack of a better word. So both Dan Gordon, and I can only refer to this young man, now of course he's in his 40s, is B.H., and he doesn't want his identity to be known. Anyone that might have seen Monster Quest a year and a half ago may recall that show when it was showing that little piece there about them taking the poly test. Dan Gordon, this young man's now 40 years old, but like I said, but they both passed that test, with flying colors. I talked to the director, I don't know, probably a few hours after he got his report back, and he says, yeah, they had no trouble. They went through it with flying colors. So they seen something, obviously, and that's the point we're trying to make here. So not all these sightings take place during, the daylight hours or actually during the summer months, as most people think. There is these winter sightings, but they don't happen often enough. So any reports like you want to talk about down that way happen during the winter months, or?
Yeah, just whatever you want to discuss. But we do have a question. Well, I could
ramble on for a long period of time here. I mean, thought you might have some questions here regarding that.
Well, I do have some questions, and I'm going to get to them. But we do have a question from the chat room from Midnight Blue. She wants to know who in your life influenced or encouraged you to do this research, when and why?
Well, like I said, I started back about 34 years ago, and oddly enough, I was reading a book by Peter Burns. And that week I was reading it is when all this took place in Whitehall back in 1976. Mm-hmm. And I thought, what? This can't possibly be here right in my backyard. So that's when I started looking into it. I started interviewing the Goslins, Brian Goslin and his brother Paul, and all the other people related into this particular subject matter. He actually had a role, if you will, if you played in it. And that's where it all began. And it just hasn't stopped. It seems like reports constantly keep coming in. And there's always new things happening. And so it's always held my interest. So for all these years, 34 years, has been something I just like to find the answer before my time is up. But like a lot of people feel the same way. But I'm hoping we can find some answers before it all ends. So.
Absolutely. I'm chuckling at something in the chat room.
Yeah.
We do have a caller on the line, and I'm not going to tell you who it is. It's a surprise. Go ahead, caller. You're unmuted.
Bill? How you doing, Bill and Henry?
Hello, Bill.
How you doing?
I'm doing great. It's cold down here in Connecticut, and just watching TV and stuff, and nothing Bigfoot in Connecticut. Well, actually, no, there was an article about the Winston Wild Man, what was it, 2 weeks ago. And that's about it.
Well, how you doing, Bill? I mean, other than that, staying warm?
Just listening to Bigfoot radio shows and stuff, and looking up reports on the BFRO website, and keeping up with the gossip on various forums and stuff like that. And
well, it's been colder than mother-in-law's kids south of Mississippi, believe me, up here. So
what's new with you, Bill?
Well, not too much. Actually, Brian Goslin just completed an interview there with Adirondack Life magazine. It should be published sometime this month or the first part of next. Dan Gordon just finished like a 10-minute segment there for one of the local colleges. It seems like they had a film crew up there in Whitehall. They were shooting another project, and they had some film left, and so they approached Dan to, do a little bit more footage on the Sasquatch story. So that's a couple of the newer things that's been happening since the last time I talked to you. So.
Yeah. So have you heard from that lady lately that tells you all those stories?
Unfortunately, yes, I do. Like 3 times so far this week. Yeah. No ending there. I did talk to Dr. John Bendenagel Monday night, and I was discussing his book because I know I was going to be on Henry's show, and he says he's in the process of writing the appendix for it now. And as you know, as we talked a few months ago there, that the book was being edited by a science editor, and as far as I know at this stage, it's all done in that part of it. So it's coming right along, and I'm hoping it's certainly going to be a book worth gathering and having in your collection. This book we're going to be waiting for, that's for sure. I think he's going to address some of the issues that's confronting us right now, trying to get the evidence that we've gathered properly before the scientific community, because so much of it is not properly looked at. It's always fluffed off. So one of the photographs that I have sent him that's been sent to me, he says there's really no sense of sending any more of that type. He says it's hard to get my colleagues to even consider it. So this is probably one of the better photos I have seen of a track taken in the Adirondacks in some period of time, but that's where we stand on it. Is a lot of the people in the scientific community is not going to commit themselves till we have a body or some kind of sample to work with.
Now, is this John Bendernagel's book you're referring to?
Pardon me?
Is this John Bendernagel's book you're referring to?
Yes.
Yeah, the Discovery of the Sasquatch. Yeah, he gave a little sneak preview of it last May at the Yakima Bigfoot Roundup.
Yeah, he told me he was going, to do that.
Right.
So, yeah, every once in a while when we're talking, I have to bring me up to date what the status is on it, and that's the current status. He is doing the appendix for it right now.
Okay.
So.
Sounds good.
Yeah,
I'm looking forward to that book.
Bill.
Yes, it is.
Go ahead, Bill.
Do you think that there's some sort of possible migration of these creatures in Vermont, New York, and Pennsylvania?
Well, over in Vermont, I can almost say that it is passing back and forth between New York and Vermont because we're so close to the Canadian border and so close, New York and Vermont. My God, you know, where I am right now, New York State, I'm probably 45 minutes from the Vermont line. I'm probably an hour and a half from the Canadian border. I think all that is a migration route, as I've specified many times, and I do because as recently as past fall, there's been tracks found in different parts of Vermont to indicate the fact that there was movement, a lot of movement in that area, and there was a main stretch of highway. I don't know if many people there in the south know about it, but there's one stretch of highway known as Route 7 that cuts through most of Vermont, and there's been high numbers of sightings along that road. Now, we submitted a report to Don Keating, and some future episode of his newsletter, he's going to publish some or all of what we gave him. So we gave Dan, we gave a number of people, the interest to write this particular story if they wanted to, and Don Keating expressed interest in it, so we gave him the sole rights to write this particular report. So I don't want to really elaborate on it before people have the chance to see it. So as far as answering your question, yeah, there's definitely movement between these two states here for sure. Pennsylvania, I'm almost sure in the northern section coming into New York, due to the high number of reports that I've got right along the borderline there for a number of years, that is a good indication, a good thermometer that, if you will, that there's been a high number of sightings in that particular area. Some vary the way we normally put these stories together. They're not normally seen by the average person, but people that's got a lot to lose that they would, talk about it, well-educated people, if you will, business people.
Yeah.
And these are the type of people that kind of shy away from that limelight, if you will, because of the fact they have so much they could lose. And but we have educators finding tracks, just bringing that to our attention, and so these are all positive areas. These people are people that can reason well and think what they're going to do, and these tracks are something out of the ordinary to them, and so they're not. You're not really going to say, well, hey, this is made by a human being, because they're so large. In fact, it's strange because I just had a number of photographs sent to me. I'm walking back from my desk. These photos there are from the interior of the Adirondacks. Some of them are from what they call Long Lake. A lot of these lakes had the same name, and they're quite large tracks. Let's see, this one here is 14 inches long, 8 inches wide, and over 1.5 inches deep. Another one from the same Adirondack area, it is 6 inches across, and it's 16 inches long, so exceptionally long. Normally, the normal track here found in New York State is usually 14 inches, but they do go 16, so that 16 does not throw me off too much. But when people send these photographs and they mark on the back where they are and what the depth of the track was and how long they are, that's good information, but they also forget a lot of times what was the date when the picture was taken, because sometimes pictures will stay in a camera for a long period of time. And these all seem to be in September of 2009 and October of 2009. So these are all different tracks from different parts of the Adirondack. So, and like I said, they still got to be evaluated, and we have our team members come in there probably next month. We're going to start looking at these tracks and see what we're going to do as far as setting up cameras and what areas we want to explore and get back into. So.
Well, Bill, thanks for answering my questions, and do a good show, Henry, and stuff. Get a lot of callers, and we'll keep in touch.
Okay,
thanks for calling in, Bill.
Yeah.
All right, thanks, Bill. Later. We had a question in the chat. That's right. We had a question in the chat from Stymie02. He was wondering, do you find any increased tendencies in aggression in winter sightings as compared to other seasons?
No, actually, the winter sightings are usually much lower. The peak of the sightings are usually in the fall here in the Adirondacks. I know we wrote about, Whitehall exclusively an awful lot, actually. We also talked about it a lot, but it seems like the interior of the Adirondacks. Let me just tell you, the Adirondacks, if anybody hasn't heard me say this before, the Adirondacks is a little more than 6 million acres. And about 12,000 years ago, when the ice started retreating back towards Canada, it released huge, huge watersheds. Mountain ranges that you stand on one end, that's what you look at, mountain range after mountain range. This is a huge, vast wilderness area. And there's no way that one person could cover any section of this for any period of time. Most of the stories come to us from snowmobilers or hunters or hikers or people that's out snowshoeing. So you can only cover a small part of the park during the wintertime. But the fall is when we seem to get more of the sightings at any time of the year, in my mind. What I have anyway, at least by some of my records.
Right. Oh, absolutely. I hope that answers your question, Stymie. And a very good question. Thank you very much. We also, we don't have any more questions from the chat right now. Stymie wanted to ask about tendencies and aggression compared to the other seasons.
We do have one right. In fact, I got it right here in front of me somewhere. So, I can't mention his name because he does a lot of work, with the government. He does work for NASA. Does a lot of work on the computer. In fact, he designed our logo. It was in June or July of 2002. I'm kind of thinking back on this, where he and his wife was in a mountain range in the Adirondacks. Got off trail, and as they're sitting there, they heard a commotion up in front of them coming off the side of a hill. They couldn't see anything, but there was breaking limbs and vocalizing, screams that they never heard before, very powerful screams, heavy footsteps, to the point where they got up and they started to retreat from where they were. And whatever this was, and they're surmising it was a Sasquatch, it followed them for almost a half a mile. It's just staying off to the left of them. So it scared the living Jesus out of them.
Oh, my.
So that was a summer month type of incident, if you will. And there's been others where, rocks have been thrown at people in the Adirondacks, and they said, well, we know there was no other hikers around us, so what threw these rocks? And, and of course, you can only speculate, but there is aggressive behavior like that. I have a problem when people think you can walk up and shake the hand of this thing.
Yeah.
That woman that Bill called in about, asked if I heard anything from her. She's, she's out there, let's put it that way. But she may have had at least one sighting. We examined that quite thoroughly this spring. She called me December 31st, 2008, and told me that she had a sighting in September 20th, that's what it was, where it crossed the road in front of her vehicle. And she took a picture of her vehicle behind the steering wheel looking down the road, and you're seeing this fall scene. And then she drew of what she believes to be a Sasquatch crossing the road in front of her. It's very lean looking. That's the way she described it. Dark-haired. The hair was clean-looking, muscular, but not heavy, not more than 7 foot tall. It came across the road in front of her on a 45-degree angle as she was slowing down. It passed and went off across the road on the left-hand side. Now, she's not the only one that described an animal that time of year and also into the winter months. It's been slender built like that. So what we used Brian Gosling because he is about as close as you're going to get as far as the height and the weight. She estimated the weight to be somewhere between 225, maybe 235 pounds. And Brian is 6'2", and he weighs right around 200. So he's close enough to play the role. So we had him reenact the way it happened and the location where it happened. And as we done that, the following days after that, we found another report that came in. It was a little older report, but it's still a report that came in and put a Sasquatch sighting in that same general area. And then back in June 7th, 2009, a man in the same general area, well, only maybe 2 miles from the location, over near a place called Bear Pond, claimed that he has seen a Sasquatch with a young one. He didn't say it was a female with a young one. He just said it was a Sasquatch with a young one. And so it's a good possibility she did have this sighting, but she's told so many different things. It just kind of boggles the mind. If I was to go into all that, you wouldn't even want to hear about it, believe me. I mean, you got to sort nonsense and reality. So that's where we go.
Oh, of course. I wanted to ask you, Bill, about the book, Monsters of the North Woods. What was sort of the impetus for the four of you to write it, and what was sort of the inspiration, as it were?
Well, we've been doing it for a very long period of time, and so naturally we've gathered a lot of information. And since I did the original investigations back in '76, I had some of the early reports, and all of my reports are on tape. When I interview anybody, I just don't take a notepad or anything with me. I take a tape recorder. So when I tape them, no one can deny what they said, because I can play it back to them and say, this is precisely what you said, and this is how you said it. So that's the reason why I work with a tape recorder. We basically had the same information, and so to do the book, we decided to write it jointly, and that's how the book come to be like that. So. So as far as getting inspired, it's just that the time was right to do it.
Yeah. And, of course, Paul and Robert wrote, I think, a pretty good follow-up called Bigfoot Encounters New York and New England, and that came out in 2008 from Hancock House Publishers.
That's right.
And I thought they did really, really well with that one. I think they did a really good job on it. Of course, I know Robert is the more skeptical of the two brothers.
Yeah, he's in Australia. He'll probably be there for a couple more years anyways. He basically wrote the book from what he told me, so. So. Of course, the other one, the original there, was pretty much laid right out there, and everything was pretty much used in that, at least 80 or 90% of the book. So, but there is a flaw in the storytelling, though. I mean, I'm one for details and getting it correctly. When they talked about the three young girls coming back from a camping trip, that was no camping trip they were on. It was a teenage drinking bash. Now, I interviewed two of the girls of the three an hour and a half after that incident happened, and they were completely sober. They weren't drinking. What they saw, they were very, very, very precise about it. But trying to interview teenage girls is, oh my God, and and so you put that into a sentence, and precisely. But they weren't on a camping trip. They were in a teenage party. There was approximately 15 people there, and of course there was loud music being played, and there was a very large bonfire. Now, I don't know if this has any reflection, because I've been playing with this for a while. After I heard that story, I can remember with Wilford Goslin, who was acting chief of police in Whitehall back in '76. He said, I'm telling you this off on the record. He says, a young man came in here, high school age, and he says something came into their party area. They were partying out in the woods. And he says, grabbed one of the girls, briefly brought her into the bushes, didn't seem to harm her, but released her. This thing was very tall, hairy, and the scenario is very similar to the incident that took place that they went and wrote about in the book. where people were all partying and so on, although they didn't mention partying, but that's what they were doing. So what was it that attracted a Sasquatch maybe to this, to this party area? Was it the music, the voice of women, young women? I have no idea, but there's an incident that happened in '76, and of course another incident that happened in 2006. So there you go. What's the parallel between the two? And it's kind of bothered me. I've been trying to locate some of the high school girls and boys. It might have been there at the time, and I have a list of names, and I've been trying to work on that, but no one wants to answer the letters like, just keep it quiet or it never happened. But I've been trying to get information regarding that. I've been trying to figure out exactly what happened. Of course, Wolfergasm was another one, straight from the hip, and one of the really outspoken persons at the time I was interviewing, because many of the people in Whitehall, especially the police officers, were told to keep their mouth shut or lose their jobs. That's the reason why he was telling me, I'm telling you off the record. So, anyways, this particular case has always bothered me now that now there's two separate incidents, almost the same type of scenario,
Oh, absolutely.
Yep.
Let's see. I guess my next question would be, my next question would be, as far as the ecology of the area and the areas you've investigated, what sort of things do you believe that they have to eat? I mean, I'm sure I know there's other large predators in the area. But and of course I know that they do very well as far as finding food and water sources and things of that nature. What ecologically is there for Sasquatches to eat in the Adirondacks?
There's only one story that I have where a Sasquatch was actually devouring something. A guy it was a hobby with him. He liked photographing birds. And off on a mountain range there is not too far from what we know as the Mary Dodge Road. You can see the school from there. Actually, after I was told this, I had to have a couple of police officers who patrolled the area and knew the area extremely well to help me pinpoint exactly where he was talking about. He didn't want to tell me where he was, but with the landmarks that he used to talk about, and the aid of some police officers that knew the area extremely well, I was able to put the area together. We knew he was off on the Mary Dodge Road. There's a very high ledges and cliffs in that area. And what he was photographing is turkey vultures and various birds like that coming to roost along that rugged area. And while he was there, he heard a noise behind him. As he turned, he claimed he saw a Sasquatch. And it moved very slowly. It looked off in his direction. And it went towards a small tree is the way he described it. And there was something in the tree that moved back and forth across from one tree to the other. He started shaking the tree and banging on the tree, and he said, I didn't see exactly what it was, but it fell out of the tree and it kind of went right over it. And every once in a while, it would look back in his direction as he was feeding on it. So he says, I stayed there for probably a half an hour, if I recall the story correctly, until it wandered off. And he says, I walked over to where it was, feeding, and he says, I could see the remains of a raccoon. He said there wasn't much left. So that would be probably one of the sources if you want to use that. But there's so much small animals in the Adirondacks, as well as birds and fowl of that sort. In fact, I got to photograph this guy named Jack Leach, who is a member of our organization. He has a lot to do with state planning for the New York park. Out in the western part of the state where he was, he found a dead wolf. Now, we're not supposed to have wolves in the Adirondacks anymore, according to the state. But anyways, we don't know if somebody shot it or it just died of natural causes, but he came across it and he photographed it. And he sent me photographs of the head especially. It's a mean-looking sucker. So, excuse me. So I told him there to cover it and go back sometime, maybe in the spring or shortly after that, excuse me, and see if he can't recover it to bring it to the state officials and say, hey, look, we still have wolves here in the Adirondacks. This is a big one. He estimated to be somewhere around 130 pounds. So, so you do have that type of predator, and of course they want to tell you there's no mountain lions either, or cougars, if you will, here in the Adirondacks. And there's been people who live in the outer areas of the Whitehall area and areas like that who had their livestock clawed up, and one horse had to be put down because it's so badly injured. And the DEC officer says, well, if you have to talk about it all, say it was attacked by coyotes, because we have a high population of coyotes in the area. And that's not what happened at all. It was something with large claws that actually bit into the neck and clawed this animal up pretty bad. So, and this down below us here, if you want to go just on the outskirts of Albany towards Clifton Park, it's kind of a remote area. People had actually photographed with video camera a Sasquatch in their backyard. So these are cougars, I meant to say, in their backyard. So there are definitely some left in this area, and you know there's been hunted almost to extinction. But it's one of the things they don't want you to know about, whether it's just scare people out of the park or do away with tourism. I don't know what it. But to me, you know, there's something there. You talk about it, you get the thing straightened around. You know, this nonsense is just sidestepping the issue. It does not solve a problem at all. You know, I get it right the first time because somewhere down the road somebody's going to write what you say, and so you want to get it correct. So, so that's the way I feel about many of these things that happen up here. So anything else regarding that? As far as the habitat, you were mentioning that we've got probably every type of tree growing in the Adirondacks. You know, pines, oaks, maples. You just about name them. We have just about all of that growing. So we have, you know, hardwood as well as, you know, your pines and cedars and so on. So it's a huge, vast area. I mean, there's places where probably no one has set foot in 200 years or more, if ever at all, you know. So I just can't emphasize just how large this area is. It's a state park, but it could very well become a national park, a federal park, if you will.
Absolutely. And
actually, I would prefer that there. They had the federal government take it over, so that means they could do more with it. I would like to see something done about the massive amount of wood that's being taken out of the Adirondacks. Is one of the things that bothers me, because you know, once you deplete a forest, you know, it's very hard to bring it back. So.
Oh, absolutely, and I'm pretty sure there's lots of water resources.
You know, I've been told ever since I was a young boy that you could fish the lakes and the streams and the rivers of the Adirondacks and never fish them all in one lifetime. He was able to fish every day. To give you some idea. That's how vast this area is. And this goes all the way back to the Canadian border. You know, John Bendenagel and I talk about the vast area and the difficulty of trying to find footprints. You know, we both agree that such a heavy leaf matter within the forest floor, it makes it almost impossible to find tracks. And when people send me pictures, it's usually like 1 or 2 tracks, or if we find tracks ourselves, I think the most we ever found in a row was 6. And so, you know, you don't find tracks that easily. And in fact, the last track we found was in March, you know, this past March 2009, was the last decent track that I can say that we found. I don't mean the ones that's blurred or you can't identify. You can see the 5 toes. You can actually see the roundness of the heel. You can see where the weight distribution was on the side of the foot, various things like that. Very strong, impressive track. But that was the last one we found, even though we look, you know, and we tried looking in most of the wet areas, you know, where the drainage is coming off the side of the mountain, for example, creating heavy, wet, damp areas, and even in a dry spell. If anything had moved through there, you would find it. Next to some of the streams in the mountains there, there's another area we would look. People have reported tracks that they have seen in small stream beds as it crossed the stream. So, anyways, this area, like I keep repeating myself, but no one person could ever cover any amount of it, that's for sure. That's the reason why it takes a team of people working together to accomplish as much as humanly possible. I used to think, you could do it alone, but long since learned that you can't. So what we do now is explore the possibility where we want to put these cameras, what would yield the most. And even if you don't get what we're looking for, a Sasquatch, it's kind of neat capturing the image of, whether it be a deer or a bear or whatever. These are images you wouldn't have had unless you would put those cameras out and you actually pursued it at that point. So I know you know what I'm talking about.
Oh, absolutely.
That is as much of a thrill as well. So.
Yeah. I've been remiss, folks. I have not mentioned the phone number. The phone number tonight to call in is 347-996-5814. If you want to call in, ask Bill a question, maybe talk to him for a little bit. That's the phone number to call in tonight if you want, if you'd like to call in and maybe discuss sightings in the state of New York. We do have a question in our chat room from Irish Guy. He wants to know, what do you think of the chances are that someone is going to have a sighting in film that will match the Patterson-Gimlin film?
I didn't get all that. Want to run that by me again?
Oh, certainly. Irish Guy was wondering, what are the chances that someone is going to have a sighting and a film that will match the Patterson-Gimlin film?
Boy, I wish I had the answer to that one. I'm hoping it'll happen, but I don't see it happening in the near future. Again, when I talked to John Bendeneichel about such things, that he's not even completely convinced that it'll take a picture. I know I talked to Russ Kenny, who is a nature photographer, and he says it'll have taken a super ordinary picture there of doing something out of the ordinary, super out of the ordinary, or something a human being couldn't do, something only this animal is capable of doing. How would you capture all that to prove such a thing? I have seen tracks where this thing has probably covered 30 feet in 3 steps. Now, that's certainly something a human being could not do, but what does that actually mean? We don't have a body or a specimen to go with that. But as far as anyone catching it on film, I think it's something that will either happen by chance or somebody be really in the right place at the right time. I know we've been looking for a very long period of time, and are we any closer than we were 50 years ago? I know when I talked to John Green at different times, as he reflects back, it's been an interesting trip, but really what we really got to show for it, we do have a lot of stories. I've talked to Dr. Krantz before he passed, and he says, all the stories that we have gathered, that's basically what they are, is stories. And I wish I had $1 for every time he told me this. You see one, shoot it. And I'm not applying or trying to advocate any way at all. Then we go out and shoot one. But I think that is what it's going to take. It's going to take a body of some sort, whether a part of one or they actually got a full specimen. I think that's the only way the scientific community is going to set up and take notice.
Yeah, I have to agree. That's about the only way.
Yep. I really don't see no other way around it. I have approximately, I couldn't tell you how many thousands of files I have from different parts of the country besides New York State and Vermont. The filing cabinet is actually bulging with material. And all this, what does it really mean? I have talked to a number of people over the years. Some are passed on now. Renee Donovan, he says he has the same thing. He had, I guess, at least 5 files, as I recall him telling me. And he says he doesn't know what he's going to do with it, but he thought he would have it burnt. I don't know if he ever did or not, but he had gathered so much material, but what did it really mean? He never seen one. He did capitalize on a beer commercial once, though. But, that's pretty much it. And when we gather all this stuff, and you have to wonder when it becomes a collection or when it becomes part of historical value, and I just don't know anymore. The only thing we can do is just keep on plugging. That's what we do, and that's what we do the best of. But right now, the network is such a way that we do have material coming from us in all parts of the state. Probably at some point in time, we will start recruiting more people. What can they bring to the table? What do they got to offer? How much experience they had, and so on. But as John pointed out, these tracks that I've been sending him, these photos of tracks, what do they actually mean? You know, he says his colleagues there, you know, they're not really taking them seriously. You know, a lot of these things could be made by human beings. But when I look at the depth and I look at the crater around the track, and I see the way the ground is ruptured and a tremendous amount of weight. One of the guys that worked with us there, Clifford South, he posed with his foot next to one of the tracks there this March, and the one I was talking about earlier. Clifford weighs about 225, and he's a little more than 6'3", as I recall. He didn't even leave hardly a scratch in the surface, and here's this deep impression. It was better than an inch and a half deep. So, you know, what made that? You know, I'm taking an enormous-sized man. I'm using him as a reference because, you know, his size. And if somebody had a machine to make these tracks, they would have to tote this thing around. I get tired of carrying around 8 pounds of plaster with me. Can you imagine what it would take to accomplish the depth of creating that particular footprint, for example? So if man didn't make it, what did make it? You know? Mm-hmm. So, interesting any way you want to look at it. And do I have the answers? No, I don't have all the answers. I wish I did, and I probably never will. But I don't know anybody else that does either. And no matter how long they've been at it or how much of an expert they think they are, if they had known all that, they would have had a specimen by now, that's for sure. But we don't have one, and that's pretty much where we stand. We can only hope that 2010 will change things. There's more people out there doing what we're doing. Certainly, the electronic age has come into play. We got more electronic gadgets to play with out there than we had, say, 30 years ago. So this is all important as well. So. Mm-hmm.
Oh, folks, we're going to end the show in about 5 minutes because I want to definitely get over to Larry Batson's show. He's going to have Joan Embry on Larry Batson's Wild World at 10 Eastern, 9 Central. But we do. I see that Abe has his hands up, so we're going to bring him on, and we're going to let Abe ask a question or two. We only got 5 minutes, Abe.
Thanks. I just got a real quick question. I was wondering if Bill thinks that discovery of this creature will happen during his lifetime, and if so, where does he think the discovery will be taking place? Do you think it'll be in the United States or on some other continent?
Well, I do think it'll be here in the United States. As far as happening in my lifetime, well, I'll be 72 this May, and I'm still hoping, but I don't foresee it happening, really. I can only hope, as I said. So if anybody's out there has really got the answers, I wish they would come forth and maybe help us out here.
What area of the United States? I'm sorry.
Well, it could very well be in the Oregon area, or it could very well be here in the Northeast. I think both areas has well proven themselves for the amount of sightings they have seen or have been reported in those areas over the years. Here in the Northeast, people are not so much aware of how many sightings take place. I think right off the top of my head, there's something like 240 sightings that we know about, and that's a considerable amount.
That is.
Yes, it is.
Okay. Well, thanks for answering my question. Andy, if you could just put me on mute again, that'd be great. Thank you, Bill.
Thanks, Abe.
More than welcome.
As we're wrapping up the show, Bill, I wanted to ask your final thoughts and kill or no kill.
Definitely no kill. But I think that's the only way it's going to happen. But if we got time, you can cut me off any time on this. I talked to a number of people in the Pennsylvania area trying to get some help on this. This is something I've been working on for a period of years, something like 16 years. Two very important people, leastwise, let's just put it this way. I know I got to shorten this story up for you. They was horseback riding back in the Pocono Mountains of Pennsylvania back in 1984, in the fall of 1984. There was something that jumped up in front of them there. It wasn't extremely tall, maybe 5 feet tall, and it started screaming. It caused the horses to start to buck and raise a little bit of hell there. If the thing ran off and they tried to pursue it on horseback, they couldn't keep up with it. It screamed behind them, it screamed in front of them, it screamed off to the left, and I thought, well, maybe there was more than one. It didn't seem to be the case. These people have been really bothered by it. One is the former SWAT officer. Actually, he was a captain of a SWAT team. And the other one was, he built large bridges and dams in Pennsylvania. So these are well-educated people, as I point out. They're not sure what they saw. They're not really saying it's like a Sasquatch. They said it had long black hair flowing off in his head. The face looked a lot like an Eskimo if they had to try to put a picture on it for you. It was completely naked from what they could tell. And this seemed to be in the Pocono Mountains. Now, other people would call this thing a ledger, and I don't know what the heck a ledger is. So if anybody's got any suggestions or got any information regarding that, I would appreciate if they would send it on to our website. And, of course, they could reach me through John Pearson, who is our web host. If they want to go to northernbigfoot.net, they can get me there. And I would appreciate any information regarding that. They can help me.
And I'm putting the link in the chat room for you right now. And we are at the cutoff point. So I want to thank Bill. I want to thank you very much for coming on the show tonight. This was great. This was a lot of fun. And I hope everybody has learned from you and learned about the encounters in the Empire State. And again, thank you.
You're more than welcome. I hope we can do it again sometime.
Oh, that'd be great. But so until next week, y'all be good or be good at it. This has been the Sasquatch Experience.
You've been listening to Sasquatch Experience. Please rate and review wherever this podcast is consumed. To share your experience, visit us on Facebook or email us, squatchexperience@gmail.com. Keep on squatching.